We have major breaking news in the NBA where the Milwaukee Bucks have reportedly decided to boycott Game 5 against the Orlando Magic in protest of the police shooting of Jacob Blake in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Now, the Orlando Magic players were on the court warming up, getting ready for this game to start. The Bucks never came out. They remained in their locker room. So when the clock ticked down to 0, the Orlando Magic then left the court, went to their locker room. A few minutes later, the officials left the court. The Bucks remain in their locker room, as do the Magic. And the reports now from ESPN is that the Bucks will boycott Game 5 against the Magic, up 3-1. Well, let's bring in former NBA Coach of the Year Avery Johnson and Bill Ryder, our insider. Bill, I'm going to go to you first, just for any news you might have on this and what it might mean. Does this mean that it will be a forfeit of Game 5 if the Bucks do indeed boycott this?
Chris, certainly talking to folks around the league this morning and yesterday, there was a lot of confidence that there would be a game boycotted at some point. But the folks I talked to really thought that would come more from Boston, from Toronto. This is a surprise, at least a lot of the folks that I've been in touch with. And as it relates to what happens in this game, we are clearly in uncharted territory. I don't know. The folks that I've reached out to in the last 10 or 15 minutes, they don't know. It'll come down to a decision by Adam Silver, and we're obviously in a position now with the Bucks having made this decision where everything that follows, starting with this situation, has something that's never been thought of and has never happened clearly in the NBA. And
clearly, it's a difficult situation for everybody, including the players who are trying to decide whether or not to play. Avery, what's your take on this, on the Milwaukee Bucks? Clearly, this is their state. I mean, this is Wisconsin, this is Kenosha where this happened. There's been unrest there and other killings over the last couple of nights. How do you feel about this?
Yeah, this is a powerful statement by the Milwaukee Bucks players and coaches, because I don't think this is just about the players. I think, this is a team that's very well connected. Mike Budenholzer, their head coach, was with us for years. I remember when he was a video guy for us in San Antonio and moved up the ladder, and I know about his character. So I think this is a concerted effort by a team and an organization to make a strong statement about this Jacob Blake's shooting 7 times in the back. And I think because of this strong statement, I'm curious to see what's going to happen with the rest of the games, especially, the game with the Lakers in Portland, the Mavericks in the Clippers series, or other teams going to follow the Milwaukee Bucks lead by boycotting this game.
Yeah, the Thunder Rockets game, the pivotal Game 5, is supposed to tip off at 6:30 tonight. Lakers trying to close out the Blazers. No Dame Lillard in that game. Avery, I want to go back to you. Clearly, this is a huge, unprecedented statement. There's no doubt about that. But what in your mind are they trying to accomplish, the players on the Milwaukee Bucks, by boycotting this game?
You're right, Chris. You got to have not only a mission and a strategy, but you have to be able to articulate clearly what you're trying to accomplish. And I'm assuming that they're trying to accomplish that they want the officers arrested. And I think it's more than just the Jacob Blake shooting. I think it's about the Breonna Taylor untimely murder when she was killed in her apartment, sleeping at midnight. So I think it goes beyond just the shooting in Milwaukee. I'm assuming that they're trying to make a statement about Breonna Taylor also, because that's been at the forefront of their conversations in pregame interviews, postgame interviews. So that's what I'm assuming that they're trying to accomplish without being in on the inside of it.
Again, if you're just joining us, this game was supposed to tip at 4:10 Eastern time in the bubble. Milwaukee up 3-1 on Orlando. The Magic were on the court for pregame warm-ups. The Bucks never came out. And then when the clock struck 0 and it was clear the Bucks weren't coming out for the tip, or the starting lineups for that matter, The Magic then left the court, and then the officials left the court. And ESPN is reporting that the Bucks are boycotting this Game 5, again, in response to the shooting of Jacob Blake by police in Kenosha, Wisconsin. But, Bill, as Avery points out, this isn't just stemming from that one incident that was in the home state of the Milwaukee Bucks, but this is a lot bigger than that. How do you try to put into words what is happening right now in the NBA with this statement and this moment that I think we're going to remember forever?
Yeah, I think, Chris, I would refer to some of the folks that I've visited with over the last few weeks about these issues. Former players, current players, executives, black men in this country who very much believe that their experience with police, their experience with being afraid when they're pulled over, the difference in trying to have a conversation with their children about what it means to encounter a police officer being vastly different, certainly, than when I talk to my son about what it means for him to interact with a police officer. There's a sense around the NBA, a shared sense, Chris, that there's not enough understanding from white Americans. There's not a universal perspective that what black people in this country have gone through as it relates to dealing with law enforcement is a real issue. And that's a big part of the reason, as it's been explained to me, that a lot of folks did not want to come to the bubble. Why there were reports out, Nick Nurse talking about his having heard of players who might want to go home. And I think in this situation, what players are trying to do, in fact, I just got a text a moment ago from someone trying to sort of explain the perspective, was nothing has worked. We don't feel like we've been heard. Another black man, in this case, paralyzed at least for the time being. And a sense for folks in the bubble and outside of the bubble, black Americans who are connected to basketball, that this is another step, they hope, to A, try to draw attention to what they believe is a deep and serious problem in American society, and B, if they can't utilize their position, their standing in the world of basketball to enact some change, it will, I think, reinforce for them, at least some of the folks I've talked to in this text message right here, that this isn't the time to play basketball.
Avery, you were a player, won a championship with the Spurs, and then a great coach, a coach of the year in the NBA. How are you dealing with this situation right now if you are indeed a coach of whether it's the Milwaukee Bucks or the Orlando Magic or the Toronto Raptors when you have players that really want to be heard at this moment?
Well, you have to understand their plight, and as a black man, I've experienced a lot of situations because of the color of my skin, Chris, that went unreported. And so I understand the pain firsthand of what a lot of black Americans go through in this country. But I would say, as a coach, you want to provide the support and the space for players to have their voices heard. Because if you're not lockstep in sync with the players right now, they're not going to play for you, whether you're a black coach or a white coach. So you have to be engaged with your team, communicating with them, understanding their emotions. You're more than just a coach right now. You're a psychologist, you're a counselor, you're a father figure, you're a big brother, you're an uncle. So just basically letting them know that, hey, I want to get in the trenches with you. All of us want to win basketball games, but we want to see some real change happen in the community, especially as it relates to blacks and minorities all across this country. So I think the coach at this point has to be really sincere in his support for the players, wanting to hear their voices heard and creating some real change to a system that has systemically been racist towards a lot of people of color.
And there are players speaking out on social media outside of this game and these two teams involved. Donovan Mitchell has been one of the stars of the bubble for the Utah Jazz, and he just tweeted, "We demand change. Salute," to the Milwaukee Bucks. And his Cantor with his fist in the air, showing solidarity as well. Bill, this certainly seems like this is something that might have some momentum and might be more than just one game. What are you hearing about games potentially later on tonight? I know it's early in the process. Of course, we heard tomorrow the Raptors were thinking about potentially boycotting, but is this just this doesn't seem like an isolated game boycott, that this could be league-wide at this point?
Chris, I can tell you this, as reports yesterday and today began to surface about the possibility, you referenced Toronto, of boycotted games going forward. Not necessarily today. There was a perspective from several of the sources around the NBA that I talked to that these kind of decisions don't happen in a vacuum. Even in normal times, players from the NBA would communicate by text. There's a very strong players association that's headed by Chris Paul, but these gentlemen, they're in Orlando. They're in a bubble together, and the perspective that was given to me is that, yes, if one of these boycotted games happen, and now they have, it will be almost certainly because there is, if not a unified sense of agreement, there are a lot of folks beyond whatever team were to begin this, and we know now it's the Milwaukee Bucks, who would have had conversations and decided this was the path forward. I think you have to listen to the message the Bucks are giving. I think you have to hear what sources have told me and other NBA insiders about the reality that there's a lot of conversations going on. And you got to take Nick Nurse at his word when he says people have talked about going home. I think the notion of an NBA season continuing, of what happens with the playoffs in the coming days, in the coming weeks, it's very much, it's early, but it's certainly a question mark now. It's very much up in the air, and as the players intended to do, it's now in their hands what they decide is the right course of action. And again, 2 more games scheduled for later on tonight at 6:30 and 9 p.m. Eastern time in the Orlando bubble, but it appears that first game is not going to happen. The Milwaukee Bucks reportedly boycotting Game 5 against the Orlando Magic. We still at this point don't know if that means the game will just be postponed until tomorrow or another day, or if it will be a forfeit. Avery, what do you want the league to do at this point, or what would you want the league to do if you were the head coach of the Milwaukee Bucks, like Mike Budenholzer, to try to you got to support your players, support the fans, support your media rights holders as well. This can be a tricky spot.
It is tricky because this restart was never just about basketball. The players talked about, this is not just about us collecting a check. It's more than that. I think one of the things with the restart, the teams that weren't in the playoffs, like Portland or the Spurs or Memphis or Sacramento, Phoenix, they wanted to have an opportunity to realistically make it to and get to the 8th seed. So that was a part of the negotiations. But another major part of the negotiations were the players using their voices in support of necessary changes that they thought should be in our country, and especially in terms of social changes. That's why you see the messaging on the court. That's why the players have messaging, whether it's vote or say her name, on the back of their jerseys. So it was never really just about basketball. So, and because of this situation, this unfortunate shooting in Wisconsin, now it's just boiled over. Players are upset. They're emotional. They don't think any changes happen, and now they're taking a strong stance. And now, if the rest of the teams follow Milwaukee, then we're not going to have any basketball tonight. And what is that going to look like in terms of the networks and all of the money that's involved with this? And I guess they've said money talks, and we'll have to see how the NBA, the commissioner Adam Silver, the owners, all respond to this boycott. An incredible, unprecedented statement by the Milwaukee Bucks as they reportedly boycott Game 5 against the Orlando Magic in the bubble this afternoon. Our thanks to Avery Johnson and Bill Ryder reacting real time to this. We still don't know what's going to happen with Game 5, if it will be rescheduled, if it's a forfeit. We do know that the players elsewhere are standing up in support. We saw Donovan Mitchell supporting, Jamal Murray, kind of his rival in the bubble, also supporting it. We demand justice, he tweets. The next game's up, a big one at 6:30, as the Thunder and the Rockets are tied at 2 games apiece, and then the Trailblazers without Damian Lillard trying to stay alive against the Lakers at 9 o'clock Eastern time tonight. This Bucks Magic game was supposed to be on NBA TV. Those late games on TNT, as we continue to react to the report that the Bucks are boycotting Game 5 against the Magic in response to the shooting of Jacob Blake in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis. No yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and